So eventually I'll get to some of the surprise teams, but for now we're focusing on the disappointing ones because this is a little more interesting to me. And whether this holds up for Toronto, we'll have to see. But the Raptors are currently 0-3. They've had some pretty close games. I mean, the Philly game ended up being a 7-point game, and the Spurs game ended up being 5. But they were within 1 point with a minute left in both of those games, if I remember correctly. And defensively, the Raptors have been pretty much fine. The only game where their defensive rating wasn't great was the game against the Spurs. Against the Pelicans, even if they allowed 113 points, their defensive rating was like 108, which is good. And then against Philly, they were really good defensively. They just couldn't score any points. And that is the heart of their problems right now. They are the worst offense in the league after 3 games. I think you got to look at Siakam first. His percentages are terrible. His true shooting is 48%, and he's just shooting a whole lot of jump shots. He is not getting very many trips to the free throw line. The things that I was saying about Tatum, I can basically say them for Siakam as well. He's only shooting 2 free throws a game, which is the least amount in his career since like his second season, basically. And I think what this is with Siakam is he's not good enough to get by defenders. Especially in the fourth quarter of the Spurs and the Sixers game, there were a few possessions where Siakam was trying to take it himself and create something, and he just can't get by his guy. Whether it's a wing player on him or a center's on him or the defense collapses on him, he doesn't have the quickness, he doesn't have the herky-jerkiness to his game. I mean, he has progressed a lot, but at the same time, they gave him the max contract, so expectations have risen. And he simply hasn't been good enough. Now, he's had a couple of good assist games, we'll give him that, but, I mean, if this is going to be a guy who's shooting 19 times a game and has the ball as often as he does, and you're looking for him to create offense and bail you out of possessions when nothing is going well, but he can't consistently beat people off the dribble, well, then what are we doing here? Now, there's always ways to help him out if you're Nick Nurse, between having him setting screens on and off the ball and having some off-ball movement where he starts from the corner, gets a couple of screens himself, and then, can get the ball in the move, that sort of thing. That stuff's all nice, but if you don't got it, you don't got it. And I think at this point it's fair to say, in terms of a number 1 option for a team that's looking to make deep playoff runs, then Siakam is not that guy. Now, it's not helping that Fred VanVleet is also having a tough time. He's taking quite a few pull-up threes. They are not going in. We expect them to improve a bit. I mean, VanVleet has been routinely a pretty damn good three-point shooter. And this team just has to work so hard to score. I mean, Lowry's doing what he can. He's currently averaging basically 20 and 10, but it's tough. Now, the one thing the Raptors have had, which they really used last year to bump up their offense, was being a great transition team off of their awesome defense. And I would assume they can still do that. I mean, the personnel is mostly the same here. There has been a bit of talk about Gasol and Ibaka being gone, and, it's Aaron Baines and it's Alex Len, and Alex Len is, he's just not that good. And then you have Baines, who, for a stretch with Phoenix, seemed like the best non-box score guy in the league. Outside of that, he's been basically a serviceable center, which is cool. But if you're going from Gasol and Ibaka to Aaron Baines, and then you chip in some Chris Boucher and Siakam at center minutes, it's not the same thing, And I actually think Chris Boucher has become kind of essential for this team. I didn't think it was going to be that going into the season, and when I've looked at them in these fourth quarters, and I'm just immediately like, this team might need some Chris Boucher out there with his super long wingspan, just kind of making things happen. Now, as I said with Siakam, helping him out with some off-ball stuff, you would hope that you can do the same thing with Norman Powell, who has been terrible so far. I mean, the guy went from being at times a 20-point scorer for them when they really needed it last season to what the hell is this right now? The guy's shooting 17% from the field. Now, Powell's game plan has always been to just attack the basket as much as he can, and his threes have been, iffy throughout his career. They were good the last 2 years, not so good the couple years beforehand. So for what all that's worth, I don't know, but It's just like, even if you want to draw up all the nice things that Nick Nurse can do to get these guys some more open looks, and you hope that some of these shots just start falling for Van Fleet, and I mean, Siakam's shooting 7 threes a game right now. It still comes down to no one on this team can give you 25 points a game, which it was the same thing last year, and they were great. But it just seems like for whatever reason so far this season, they're having a tougher time overachieving a little bit on offense. Some of it can be to the loss of Marc Gasol and his passing. I mean, he gave him 3 assists a game last season, which wasn't a whole lot, but Gasol's just existence and the fact that defenses have to respect him from outside, it opened up the floor quite a bit. Should also be said, they shot really well from 3 last year. I mean, I just mentioned that Powell has been kind of up and down throughout his career. He was awesome from 3. Gasol and Ibaka were great, although Ibaka seems like more of a safe thing from 3 moving forward. Siakam kind of exploded from 3 for parts of that year. There's a chance some of that just dips down because it was inevitable. And if that is the case, then that could get rough. I did mention the transition offense. Again, they've been really good at that for a few years. You would think that they're just going to get that going a little bit more. Could we see the Raptors attacking the offensive glass more often? Perhaps that could be your Chris Boucher thing. I mean, he's already grabbing 2 offensive boards a game in only 16 minutes a game. And he's tied with Aaron Baines for the most offensive boards in the team. So, okay, that could be a thing to generate you some more points. You combine that with the transition offense hopefully getting going, because as of right now, their transition offense has not been good. And if you hope that some of these 3 balls just start going in a little bit more, perhaps they can chip back into like mid-tier on offense, and then defensively, I am assuming they're still going to be very good. Although I think it should be said, Aaron Baines' health is kind of crucial for this team, and Baines hasn't really been healthy for a whole year and 3 seasons. I think the only other option I can think of for the offense, besides hoping some things that have been good for this team just start to swing back in their favor, is maybe it's time for Nick Nurse to finally unleash Matt Thomas. Because in a small sample size of now 44 games of his career, the guy has been an amazing shooter. I mean, he shot 48% on 2 threes a game last year. He's right now at 50% in the 3 games he's played. In the playoffs, he was 42% from outside. Like, whenever Matt Thomas gets an opportunity to shoot, he does it very well. And if you're struggling on offense, you might just throw him out there for 30 minutes a game and say, you know what, man? Every time you get a sliver of daylight, just let it fly. I should mention Anunoby, who has been okay enough with his lower usage compared to other guys. He's shooting really well from the field, and he's been better from 3. He's only had 1 big point game so far. He had 20 points against Philly. Even then, they weren't really running much stuff through him. And maybe they should put a little bit more on OG's plate offensively. I mean, there's been all this talk about how he's improved as a ball handler. I saw him bust out a really cool behind-the-back move on a fast break in the preseason. It was like, oh, wow, look at that. He's getting 48 touches a game right now, which is way less than Lowry, Van Fleet, and Siakam, which, yeah, he probably should still get less than them, but maybe bump it up a little bit. Do I think they should give him like pick and roll or isolation opportunities? I don't know about that, but you can at least get him some handoff plays, help him out get into the basket, that sort of thing. So yeah, man, that's pretty much the blueprint. It's, hope that the threes and the transition offense that's been good for you for a while can come back a little bit. Probably some more Chris Boucher, just because what the hell else are you going to do? You help out Siakam with some more creative sets besides just, hey, can you please be really good and, the post-ups, ISOs, or whatever. And, I mean, you hope Lowry doesn't, fall off a cliff carrying this team. That's the other part. I mean, he played 58 games last year, 65 the season before, 60 in 2017. You're really hoping for a healthy Kyle Lowry season right now. So, yeah. Now, with all this being said, again, in 2 of their losses, they were within a couple points in the last minute. Those games were winnable. So, for what it's worth. But they are 0-3, so Yeah, and the last thing I will say is a great way to fix your offense is trading for James Harden. I still think the Raptors have a real offer in there. As far as what Houston would want, what the Raptors would be willing to give up, I don't know. Of course, it depends on who else is offering whatever. But I think it's something to still talk about a little bit. I mean, there was some dude who has Houston connections who said that the Raptors and the Celtics were in the running for Harden. That was like a week ago at this point, and it kind of went by the wayside pretty quick. But that guy could be right. I imagine if there was going to be a Raptors for Harden deal, Siakam's in the move, of course. And then I think Anunoby would probably be the big bargaining chip. Now, maybe it wouldn't be Harden. Perhaps it would be somebody else. I mean, Norman Powell makes $10 million. Aaron Baines makes $7 million. That's like an okay amount of money. If you could get somebody, you could put Patrick McCaw's money with that as well. And most of those contracts are going to be gone after next season. So if you mix some of that money together with a first-round pick, you could probably get somebody. But here's the other thing. And it is Masai Ujiri, and he's got the guts to do this. If this team is not good, it might be time to trade Lowry. Because he's already going to be a free agent, and if this team's not good, he might not want to come back. Now, there's going to definitely be a Raptors fan hearing this saying, no way, Lowry's not going to leave. Listen, Jazz fans kept saying the same thing about Gordon Hayward. It happens, all right? Now, Clippers fans also said it about Paul George, and they were right, so for whatever that's worth. But the point being is, it could be a little dicey, especially because Lowry's probably going to be pretty expensive, and if you're going to find some sort of way to reset a little bit, a team that could not be that good, we'll have to see. The Lowry thing, it's sitting right there. It's like a beacon when you look at their salary situation. So for what all that means, I don't really know. But they have to get this offense figured out. We'll see if they can do it. And yeah.